Hello, welcome back to Budget with Chloe. Today we're going to be talking about every single dollar I spent on my road trip this summer. Okay, so I'm doing this in the same presentation style that I did my London video in last year. If you didn't see that, you could check it out below. As you can see here, we've got the route, which was the wackiest way to get from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada to Seattle that you've probably ever seen. Because as you can see, we could have just cut west this way. Instead, we went all the way down to the pin down at the bottom there, which is Boise, Idaho. You might be thinking, Chloe, why did you choose to go through Boise, Idaho on your way to Seattle? And I will tell you why. It was In-N-Out restaurants. I don't go to the US a lot, so there are a couple of chain restaurants that I do enjoy checking out when I do go. I looked for the nearest In-N-Out locations, and it seems like outside of California, it's not that big or it's not that available. So I did find out that Boise, Idaho has 3 In-N-Outs, and that seems to be the closest In-N-Out to me. So we did detour through there. We also stopped over here in Great Falls, Montana. I've been there before. They have a Chili's and they have a Target that I found had quite a few records. So I just thought, due to familiarity, we would stop in Great Falls. It was also a decent amount of time to drive since we wanted to keep our days kind of around 8 hours at the most. So we went down from Edmonton to Great Falls, stayed one night, Great Falls to Boise, stayed one night, and then Boise to Seattle, where we stayed for 5 nights. Then we made our way up to Vancouver, stayed there for 3 nights, and then on our way back to Edmonton, we stayed one night in sort of Kamloops, but technically it was Sutton Peaks. So that was our route. Here's a couple of pictures. This is me with Mount St. Helens. That's the one that did go kaboom in the 1980s. That was kind of cool to see. And then this is me on my birthday in Vancouver at Frankie's Italian restaurant, which was delicious and we could talk more about later. So we will start with hotels. So most things on here, I think everything other than pre-travel expenses and the things category is the total price for these things. And then I've put up here that my portion is, going to be 50% of the numbers you're seeing here on this screen. So for hotels, obviously, even if you did this trip by yourself, you'd be paying for this entire amount. So I thought that was kind of easier to see whether you're traveling as part of a couple or by yourself. These are the numbers that you would be looking at if you took the exact same trip as we did. So we stayed in Great Falls for one night. I've stayed in Great Falls before, and I stayed at the Spring Suites by Marriott, or Spring Hill Suites by Marriott. And I liked that, but their prices were just a bit too crazy for one night in the middle of nowhere, Montana. So we did compromise, me and my partner, on I believe it's like a small locally owned hotel. It was decent, for one night and for the price, which was $213.85 Canadian. And the only thing is, when we got there I think it was 5 p.m., so 1 hour after check-in, the guy at the front, he seemed to be having a rough day, which totally understand. We did not give him a hard time at all. He was having a day. But he told us there was no room ready. And so we were like, okay, should we come back? And he was like, sure. I'm like, sir, I'm going to need you to I'm going to need you to tell me what to do right now. I'm so confused. So I was like, do you know how long? And he said he wished he could tell us. I'm like, great. We will just get out of here and come back a couple of hours later. And we did, and the room was ready, but it was just kind of an odd experience. I think maybe they're a little bit understaffed, but it was good. We then moved on to Boise, Idaho, where we stayed for one night. Fun fact, the Idaho college murders that happened a couple of years ago, those 4 students that were murdered. I guess Brian, I forget his last name, pled guilty in the courthouse that was in Boise on the day that we arrived. So when we kind of drove by the courthouse, we were like, that's a lot of cameras. What is going on here? And we Googled it and we found that out. So we were in the same place as a alleged murderer, which was interesting. We had been listening to true crime on the way there, so that was kind of interesting to note. We stayed at a Spring Hill Suites by Marriott in Boise. This was 103.19 Canadian only because I had a $100 travel credit through one of my credit cards. So the full price was 203.19 Canadian, and then I applied the credit, so it took that down, which is really helpful. And one of the reasons why I keep using that card, because it does have an annual fee, but the credit does offset that, which is nice. And then I earn points that I can use to redeem for hotels and flights and things like that. So that was that. Then we moved on to Seattle. We stayed at the Hotel Max, which drew us in with its free beer hour where you can try a craft beer in the evening, complimentary. And then they did also mention having record players in the rooms. Unfortunately, I don't know if that was kind of like a novelty thing only some rooms had or not at this time, but there wasn't a record player in our room, so Justin was a little bit sad about that. But the hotel was pretty decent. I mean, prices in downtown Seattle were quite high. I think it's just, that's where the people are at. So the price was kind of what it was, and we just picked the mid-range option that looked the best and kind of in a good location. One thing I will say, I did not read closely enough about parking. All I saw was parking was available. It does turn out that the parking that was available was valet parking only, and it was $65 a night. So that was unexpected, and we just kind of had to eat that cost in the moment because the surface lots kind of surrounding the hotel, I didn't feel comfortable leaving the car that was my parents' car out in these surface lots, just knowing that, a window could get busted or something. So I did let them valet park it underground, and we just paid for that. So this is including the parking and the stay and everything. So that's $2,650.16 Canadian for 5 nights. And again, it's high just because it was Seattle and we were downtown in a pretty good location. But I would recommend that hotel, and it was quite a good stay. So we then went to Vancouver, where we stayed at a Sandman hotel downtown Vancouver. That one was good. Probably the nicest room we stayed in. Oh no, Sun Peaks was actually better. One of the nicest rooms we stayed in. The only thing was something obviously happened in their parking garage, and it was like there were tarps everywhere and part of it was like cornered off. So it felt a little sketchy and was also kind of scary because you had to maneuver corners where it was like one way alternating traffic because they had part of it closed off. So it was just kind of scary, and it felt like the roof was going to cave in or something. But other than that, it was good. And that was also in a good location downtown, kind of near the stadiums and things like that, close to part of the water. So that was $1,211.85 Canadian total for 3 nights. And then our last hotel on our way back home was in Sun Peaks, British Columbia, again, close to Kamloops. And that was $301.71. This is actually a photo from our room there. It's a cute little, Sun Peaks is a ski village. So all these hotels are kind of connected, and then there's like a little strip, like a walking community area with all the restaurants and stores and things like that. And it kind of is just like a ski village resort destination. So I think that was probably why it was a little bit higher in price. Also just limited kind of hotels available in that area just because it's between major cities. So they're also doing like mountain biking down this hill. So I guess it's open for that in the summer, which was interesting. I would never, but that is something I guess that they have available. So the total for our hotels for the 12 nights, or is it 12 days? 11 nights was $4,480.76 Canadian. And I did put the US price down here, $3,265.80. And then again, my portion would be half of that. So about $2,200 on hotels. For pre-travel expenses, this is just my portion of that. This is the stuff that I bought. So I got 200 US dollars in cash, which, funny story, was supposed to be to go to casinos because I don't go to the casino very often. And I thought, well, if we're on holiday, it's going to be my birthday. Maybe we'll just throw some money down at the casino and see what happens. Come to find out, after I took the cash out, that I guess the US, okay, I didn't do a lot of research, but I looked at the states that we were going to. Casinos, not a thing. Gambling, not really allowed. In Montana, I guess you can play like Keno on a slot machine. It's like very limited, like no casinos. Washington had, I guess, on indigenous reserves, you can have casinos, but in the city there are no casinos, and I think you can't have them. So that was very confusing. And I had already taken the cash out. So we ended up just using some of the cash on other stuff, and then some of it I put back into my budget when I converted it back. But that was just funny. I thought you guys were hella gamblers. Like, it was really it was just a really wild thing to be like, oh, like they don't do that. Like, we do that. So I went when we were in Vancouver. We were near a casino at the stadium. So I went to the casino and got to gamble there, which it was just funny. I just thought, I guess you watch movies about Las Vegas and you just assume that most of the US is like that, but no. Crazy. Okay, I also got a travel planning spreadsheet, which I looked on Etsy for one, and the one that stood out to me and ended up being really great was this one. I will just show you here. So this is by, I don't want to get their name wrong, Palm and Grace. And I just loved, there's a lot of different things down here, as you can see, that you fill in your information and do your research. But I loved Itinerary G, I believe it's called. Yeah, Itinerary G, to help me, because we had 3 days of driving where I had no idea what time we were going to get to the hotels, where we were going to stop on the way for lunch and things like that. So this really helped me as I was doing my research, kind of just throw things in and time it out. And if you make your own spreadsheets, you can do this. But if you are interested in buying one, because I simply don't have the mental capacity to like come up with something like this, like, you can link websites to the places you're going to go and things like that. And you can budget in here, which is cool. You can list all of your bookings, because I had a bunch of emails with all of the different hotel confirmation numbers and check-in times and things like that. You can compile all of it here and have it on your phone. I shared it with my partner so he could see what the plan was, but I mostly did it for this just to have written down where we were going to go. On the way to Seattle, we stopped at a couple of breweries, and it just really helped me figure out what time we were going to get to places and make sure that everything lined up correctly. So I loved this, and they actually were so sweet enough to give me a code for you guys if you are interested in any of their spreadsheets. So I will have that linked in my description below, and you'll get a discount if you enter the coupon code that they provided. I thought that was so sweet, and I really loved this spreadsheet, and I'm excited to use it on future trips, because they do have sections for like flights and stuff and different visa requirements. So obviously this road trip was not super planning heavy where we needed to keep track of things like that, but it definitely does have that capability. So definitely check it out. And if you're interested, again, I do have that code so you can get a little discount. But that was something I bought prior to the trip. And then I also like to get a eSIM for my phone that has data. I did this when I went to London last year, and then I used the same company called Maya this time around, and I had no issues. Obviously, we were driving through some kind of places with no service, so that's, no fault of theirs, but obviously if you're in a big city, like it works very well for that. And I was using my phone to stay connected to the Lime app when we were using Lime scooters and bikes, things like that, and I had no issues. So I continue to endorse Maya for sure if you're looking for an eSIM. Really easy instructions to hook up as well. And then obviously we just bought some snacks prior to the trip. So the total for that, again, this is just my cost, was $379.17 Canadian, or $276.36 USD. Okay, so transportation, again, this is a total, and then my portion is going to be half of this number here. But in total, we spent $1,029.39, or $750.27 USD. This was primarily gas, a little bit of parking, and some Lime passes. If you're not in a city that has Lime, if you're not familiar, there are those e-scooters and e-bikes, and Seattle was so full of them. It was really cool. Justin loves his little Lime scooters, and we were just ripping around. We didn't have to take the car from the valet, almost at all while we were in Seattle, because anywhere we wanted to go, we just took the scooters. We did it from our hotel down to the zoo. That was like a 30-minute trek. But it was just really easy, and they go quite fast. They go, I think it was 15 miles per hour, which I don't know if that's faster than ours, but it felt really fast. And they were just so widely available that it was kind of a no-brainer. We bought their passes where you save a little bit of money and you don't have to pay for the startup fees every time you start a ride. So we found that really helpful. And that is included in this cost here. So I think we actually did really good for transportation. My parents' vehicle is quite good on gas. But considering we did, I think, over 3,500 kilometers, this feels like a pretty sick number for transportation, considering it includes parking, not the hotel parking that was part of accommodation, but just the one-off parking at venues and things like that. Mostly in Vancouver, we paid for parking just because we weren't really comfortable walking downtown, and they didn't have e-scooters as widely available, and they're a bit more limited on where you can ride them and park them and things like that. So yeah, I think we did really good for transportation. I had written down on my rough kind of budget $500 for gas. So this is pretty much bang on. I think $15 over for my half. So that is pretty exciting that we did quite close to what I thought we would on transportation. Oh, that was me. This was me on the road. And then this was just somewhere on the road. So food and drink is a category that we really don't pay attention to while we are there. I mean, we did make a couple of comments to each other when a meal was exceptionally high priced, but we don't really, plan to spend less on food. We kind of just eat what we eat and deal with it afterwards. So that is why we spent over $3,000 on food and drink, or 2,200 US dollars. Here's our In-N-Out that we drove so far for. It was worth it for sure. It was Justin's first time having In-N-Out and he liked it, so that's good. I've got the honorable mentions here. Had to hit up the Cheesecake Factory, of course. I love the Cheesecake Factory and the bread that they serve at the beginning. I mean, Walmart has that now, and it's Cheesecake Factory branded in bags in the bakery section. I thought it might not be as good, but now that I've had Cheesecake Factory more recently, I can say that the Walmart bread is just as good, as other than it's not served to you warm, but I throw mine in the oven for a few minutes just to warm it up, and it's perfect. So Cheesecake Factory was one of the higher costing meals just because we did get, does the bread cost money? No. We got drinks, we got food. And then of course we got cheesecake. So that, and then we were so full after that. It was crazy. Also Frankie's Italian in Vancouver. I got 2 exclamation marks. We loved it so much the first time that we went again the next day on my birthday. The appetizer was delicious. I had wine. That was great. The mains were good. They also had bread. It was wonderful. It was great. And they were really nice there. And they gave me a free dessert on my birthday. So that was really sweet. And that was some of our favorite food that we had on the trip. We found Seattle to be very pricey when it came to food. I don't know if that's just big US city in general, or if Seattle's particularly high, but I usually use Starbucks as like a level. So when we were ordering grande white mochas, I think in Canada it's $6.25 Canadian on the menu board, and in the US it was $5.95 on the board, which would be like over $6.50, I'm pretty sure, like almost $7. So y'all are paying a high price for your Starbucks, at least in the big city. And some of our, like, we go out for breakfast. Here, I can go out for like a nice locally owned breakfast for about, if I have coffee and stuff and like tip, $30 maybe. There, it was costing us like over $100 total for breakfast. And so we mostly chose to go to Starbucks because it was like we couldn't afford to keep going to these like locally owned. And like I get like it costs more to go to locally owned and it tastes so much better. But by the end we were kind of like, okay, time to cut the cut the spending a little bit on at least breakfast foods. Could also be because we were downtown in the touristy areas. So we kind of just spent what we spent. And all of the food was really good. So no regrets there. In terms of activities, this was pretty low. Again, this is the total for the two of us. So $713.40 or $519.96 US dollars. I would definitely recommend if you're in a city somewhere visiting that offers the city pass, I would definitely take that. I can't remember if we did that in London because that kind of sounds like something we should have done. But we wanted to go on a boat tour after we went to the Mariners game on our first full day in Seattle. So we saw that the City Pass offered this specific boat tour as part of it. And the cost was really worth it. I mean, obviously, you bundle all of these things together. We got 5 activities in total. And you're paying probably like half of what you would pay to do all of those things separately. So we did the boat tour, we did the Space Needle, we did the zoo, the aquarium, and the Museum of Pop Culture. So we got to knock out all of those activities and spent less, than we would, because this number here includes the Mariners game. We got pretty good seats, as you can see here, and then also our Vancouver Aquarium tickets that we went to on my birthday. So I think we did pretty good for activities. We also checked out Funko headquarters in, what's the city called? Everett, Washington. That's free to check out, and it was so cool. They had like huge Funko Pop like statues and just really cool setups. And I think it's nice that they let you kind of look around for free. It is a store in there, but they just have all of this super cool like huge Funkos to look at. So we found that really cool because we collect Funko Pops, and we did end up buying ourselves a dual make your own pack that had me and Justin. So that was really cute. Also really expensive, but we will get to that. So things. This is a shirt I bought at Justin's recommendation for the Mariners game. It says Big Dumper, which I guess is what they call Cal Raleigh. And it is exactly what you think it is. He has got a juicy booty, and that is why they call him the Big Dumper. So I thought that was really funny, so I did end up buying that shirt. On things, I spent $1,136.70 or $828.48 US dollars. So this was primarily records. Went a little wacky, went a little crazy. The thing about Canada is that we don't get all of the cool stuff that you guys get. Or if we do, it's, gone really quick. So Justin spent a lot more than me, but we were finding so much cool stuff. I mean, of course, you have the Target exclusives um, that we just don't have Target here, so we can't really get unless they come to like Sunrise Records, but then they won't have the cool sticker on. Oh my God, crazy, right? So that was mostly what I spent that $1,100 on. I also bought 50/50 tickets at the Mariners game because I cannot say no to 50/50. We bought the custom Funko Pop. That was, I think, about $100, which is kind of wacky because, like, Funko Pops are like $15 a pop. Ha. I get that it's custom. Anyways, we wanted it, so we bought it. And then I bought some gifts for my family. My brother also wanted this Big Dumper shirt. I got my mom. My mom wouldn't stop talking about Bigfoot. She said Bigfoot was in Washington, and I guess they have a lot of Bigfoot souvenirs. So I did get her a cute, locally made painting of Bigfoot looking at the Space Needle, and then I bought her a reusable bag just in case she didn't like the gag gift. And then I got my dad a shirt as well. Souvenirs, I think mostly just this shirt was what I got as a souvenir. Also a mug. And then, yeah, records and some CDs and a couple of books. So that was a lot. That was what really blew the budget. I think I just assumed that my partner was going to spend the majority of the money on things. And trust me, he spent a lot more than this on records. He was able to find a bunch of his must-haves. So yeah, we spent a lot of money. And that wasn't really budgeted into the cost of the trip. It's just one of those things that kind of slipped my mind, was that usually people buy things. And some people would log this as the categories of things that they are. Like maybe should log this under collectibles, this under entertainment, etc. I feel like if you wouldn't have bought the thing unless you were on vacation, I'm probably going to log it as vacation. That might change in the future, but for now, this is all going in my YNAB under road trip, because I would not have bought these collectibles if I hadn't have been on the trip, if that makes sense. And again, personal finance, anyone can do whatever they want with their budget. That's how I'm choosing to do mine. That way it also doesn't skew my numbers, because it would look like I spend a lot on collectibles every month when really this was a one-time thing because I was on vacation. So that's how I'm going to log it. Okay, so I have a couple of numbers here. I tried to make it not complicated. So the total for the trip without things. So if you and your partner, or if you, no, not you by yourself because it's a lot of food. If you and one other person went on the exact same trip that we did, it would cost for 11 nights and all the food and the activities $9,725.47 or $7,088.41 US, which is a lot for a road trip. I feel like we could have done, how much did I do London on last year? I don't know. I feel like we could have flown somewhere and it might not have cost that much. But that's without things. It was the Seattle hotel with the valet, I swear. And then all of our food too. Yeah. It's a lot, but we had a lot of fun and we saw a lot of things that, you wouldn't really see if you just flew somewhere and didn't really drive out in the middle of nowhere. So definitely worth it. But the total for my half with my things, so everything that I am spending money on this trip, is just under $6,000. Or $4,372.70 US dollars. Did I just say cents and dollars? Regardless, this is my partner. He will make his face reveal debut when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So go ahead and subscribe if you're not already. This is from one of the aquariums. I couldn't tell you just by looking at the fish. I don't know why I leaned forward as if looking at that picture would be like, oh, yes, that's obviously the Vancouver aquarium. I have no idea. It's either the Vancouver aquarium or the Seattle aquarium because we did both. But that is that. that is how much it costs to travel when you don't stick to a budget. This was not a budget trip. It was kind of just it costs what it costs trip. And we had so much fun. We did a lot of things. And I hopefully figured out how to insert clips so that you guys were seeing some of the stuff that we were seeing while we were there. I tried to capture some content to be able to include in this. And maybe one day I'll be a vlog girly where I'll film on the go. I just feel like vlogging from the comfort of my home is a lot more comfortable. And I do like a little presentation. It is nice to kind of compile and see, because my wine app has it split. Obviously, I bought some things last month and then this month, so I can't really see. Oh, I guess I can go to reports. Okay, if I went to reports, I'd see this number. But it's nice to kind of go through thing by thing and also see how it lines up with what I predicted I would spend on this trip. So I thought it would be about $4,500, but I kind of blew over the things category, and then the hotels were a bit more and the food was about 500 more. So that is how we got to about 1,500 over my prediction. But again, did not really police this while I was there. So that is what it came out to. And I'm looking forward to traveling in the future when I build back up my reserves. But that is how much that costs. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you've been having a fun summer. And now we're back into grind mode. Gonna be working the holidays, doing everything I can to make back this money here. So have a good week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.